Hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well, let's learn English together. And hello, everyone. How the devil are you all? Is everything going well today? Was your breakfast the breakfast of kings? Did you wake up feeling as great as a 1980s pop song? Good. Well, that must mean that you're having a great day. You got out of your lazy bed, and now the chances are that you're walking on sunshine. Perhaps you're wearing baggy trousers. Maybe you came to dance, and maybe you're dancing with tears in your eyes. I don't know. Perhaps you're a member of the jet set, and hopefully, after a summer in Berlin or Vienna, you're going to remain forever young. Okay, enough of the trip down memory lane. Let's get started on today's lesson, shall we? Now, yesterday we saw the Benchfields at the supermarket again, and then I started to explain about the idea of rank, position in a hierarchical system, didn't I? Now, who remembers why I was talking about rank? That's right. It was all to do with how people address strangers in the UK. I was telling you about the fact that if a man doesn't know another man's name, then often he calls him mate when he speaks to him.
Chuck us a couple of eggs. The old ones are the best ones, aren't they? Who needs girls when you got your mates? You're not going anywhere, mate. Mate? Mate? Heavy, you killed him.
I never touched him.
Yeah, but the frying pan did, didn't it? You were touching that at the time.
Okay, now that's fine, and it's something I do all the time. So do my friends. But there's a small problem. Well, there's a couple of problems, really. The first problem is that older men of my father's generation, for example, they don't say mate, and they don't like to be called mate. So, well, the best thing to do is to make sure that you don't offend anyone. If you're not sure, then call the man you want to speak to sir. I mean, okay, it might be a bit formal, but it's better to be formal and polite than risk offending someone, isn't it? The other group which have a problem with the word mate are people who get called mate all the time, all day long. Postman, for example, or policeman. My dad was a policeman and he hated being called mate. So again, you don't really want to make a policeman angry, do you? Especially if you want to ask that policeman something for directions or for help. If you make him angry before you ask for help, then, well, maybe the policeman won't help you so quickly. So, this brings us to another problem. If you can't call a policeman mate, then what do you say? How should you address him? Okay, well, let's think about this for a moment. What phrase do we know for starting a conversation with a stranger? Yes, that's right, excuse me. Now, as we all remember, we can use the phrase excuse me to let someone know that we'd like to move past them. Or we can also use the phrase excuse me when we interrupt someone who's speaking. But we can also use this polite phrase when we're attempting or trying to get someone's attention. If we're trying to start a conversation with a postman or with a policeman, for example. Now, as we learned yesterday, there are lots of ranks in the police and in the army and, well, in lots of jobs really. But if we're walking in the street and we see a policeman, we don't know what rank that policeman is. So we can't say, excuse me, constable, because we don't know if this policeman is a constable, do we? Maybe he's a sergeant or an inspector. I don't know. I'm not a policeman, so I don't know what the little decorations on his uniform mean. All right, so what's the answer? Well, it's simple really. We can either use the phrase excuse me, That's a perfectly polite, acceptable way to get someone's attention. Or, if we want to be more specific, then we can use the word officer. Now, in the police force, officer is a word which means policeman or policewoman. So this is the perfect word to use. We can use it in combination with a polite phrase we already know, and we get, excuse me, officer. Perfect. Perfect, polite, and the correct thing to say. Good. So now, via my dad's hatred of the word mate, we now know another, better way to address people, strangers. Either we say, excuse me, or if we'd like to talk to a member of the police, then we can add the word officer to the phrase. Great! Okay. And now, what else did we hear about yesterday? Ah, yes. The conversation between Lizzie and Tim. Do you remember? So, who was that boy you were talking to? He's a mate of mine. What's his name? Eddie. Eddie what? Finn. Eddie Finn. What? Was that Eddie Finn? Do you know Eddie Finn? Yeah, I know Eddie Finn. So what? What do you mean, so what? Eddie Finn is bad news. Everyone at school knows that. He doesn't go to our school, stupid. Oh, God, you're so thick, Tim. He used to go to our school, you idiot, but he got thrown out. He was expelled. Yeah? I didn't know that. I heard about him from some of the other girls. Apparently he was always in trouble and then he did something really bad, so he was expelled. I like him. He's a good mate. Mum and Dad won't like it. Listen, Lizzie, just keep your mouth shut, okay? Mum and Dad don't need to know anything about my mates. Don't you dare tell them. All right, calm down. Dad's angry enough with you as it is. You don't need to make it any worse. Just keep your mouth shut, okay? Or what? Or you'll be sorry, that's what. Okay, so we know the word mate. So we know that this boy is a friend of Tim's. We don't know if this boy is a close friend or not, but we do know that Tim and this boy are friends. Now, what's the problem? Lizzie's got a problem, hasn't she? Lizzie knows the name, but not the boy. And Lizzie's got some information about Tim's mate that is new to Tim. Lizzie told Tim that his friend Eddie is bad news. Lizzie said that everyone at school knows that Eddie is bad news. Tim thinks that Lizzie's stupid because Eddie doesn't go to their school, but then Lizzie told Tim that he was thick. Now, has anyone heard this word before? I'm sure you all have. I'm certain that we've seen this word before. Think about the opposite, the antonym of the adjective thin. What is it? That's right. The opposite of thin is thick. So, that means that we know that a piece of paper is thin, but we also know that someone can have very thick hair. We know that some people like their sandwiches to be made with thin slices of bread, and other people like their sandwiches to be made with thick slices of bread. Now, one thing we always have to be careful of is the fact that the adjective thin hasn't only got one opposite. If we're talking about an object, I don't know, a book or a piece of clothing, during the summer we wear thin shirts because it's hot. Then the opposite is the word thick. These books are thin books. But this book, Donnie's mum's Bible, is a very thick book.
Do not drink wine when thou goest into the tabernacle of the Lord.
Okay, so that pair of opposites works for objects, fine. But we also sometimes talk about people being thin. And when we think of the opposite in this situation, it's not thick, is it? No. If we want an opposite to the word thin when we're talking about a person or a dog or someone living, then the correct word isn't thick, but fat. This is a thin dog. And this is not a thick man, this is a fat man, Batman. Okay, so that's clear, isn't it? Good. But let's get back to where we were with the Benchfield kids, with the conversation between Lizzie and Tim. Lizzie called Tim thick. She used the adjective thick to describe her brother, and she wasn't talking about his physical size. When people in the UK use the adjective thick to talk about people, they're saying that that person is stupid. Thick is an informal synonym for stupid. So Lizzie's not being very complimentary, is she? No, she's telling Tim that she thinks he's an imbecile. She thinks that he's a cretin, a fool, a moron, an idiot, a dolt, a half-wit, a dunce, a dullard, a simpleton, a nincompoop, a ninny, a dimwit, a nitwit, a numpty, a muppet, a pillock. She doesn't think that he's very intelligent. Okay, so this is normal between siblings. This is what brothers and sisters do. They call each other names. They insult each other. Fine. It's all good practice for life at school, university, and beyond. In fact, it's good practice for life. But that's not important now. What we need to know is why Lizzie thinks Tim is thick. What is it about this situation which made her come to this conclusion? Well, it's all to do with that piece of information connected to Tim's mate, Eddie. Eddie Finn was thrown out of the school. He was expelled from the school. Now, what do you think that means? Well, we know the verb to throw, don't we? Yes. When Enid takes Keith to the park, she throws a tennis ball and Keith runs after the ball and brings it back, like dogs do. Now, what if we add the preposition out to the verb? Now the meaning changes. To throw something out means to throw it away. We discard something we don't want. If you break something and it can't be fixed, then you throw it out. You throw it away. When you eat a bar of chocolate, what do you do with the wrapper? You throw it away. You don't want it, you can't eat it, you throw it out. And that's what happened to Eddie. The school decided that they didn't want him and they threw him out. They expelled him from the school. And, oh no, gooseberries. We're out of time again. Oh well, remember the eyebrows. No crying over spilt milk. We'll start tomorrow's lesson with another look at the idea of to throw out. And we'll check that we all know why Lizzie thinks that her brother is thick. All right then, people. Three things to remember. Number one, check out the website, www.m5tv.hu. Number two, relax, have another coffee, and remember to have fun. And finally, number three, see you later. Bye.